And as you know, this is a webinar to talk about the Winter Solstice event for the shadow, the Releasing the Shadow, Engaging the Light program. And I'll start with a quote from Joseph Rael. He says, "Our path is the form by which our fears are challenged and the manner in which we face them." And I think about that because in this situation that we're in right now, we have fears that are occupying us on multiple levels. And I know that a lot of people are feeling, having sense of hopelessness, a sense of despair, etc. It all depends on your perspective. If you're thinking from the perspective of the caterpillar, the world as we know it is coming to an end. But if we shift our perspective and start thinking from the point of view of the butterfly, we're about to experience a wondrous birth. So the question is, which path do we want to walk? Do we want to walk the caterpillar path, or do we want to walk the butterfly path? And you know which one I would recommend that we walk, and that's what we will be about tonight. So this is all of tonight. The next 2 hours is an introduction. And this is an introduction to the introduction. We have a focus and we have a meta vision. And our focus and our vision is that we can create a world that works for all beings. Now, there are lots of other people doing a lot of other actions from a lot of different goals, a lot of different visions. And I want to make sure that we maintain a clear vision and a clear focus of what our vision is, a world for all. And we also have a primary value. Our value is inclusivity. And inclusivity is not inclusion or inclusiveness, etc. It's a very specific value. And the value is I am you. We are one. And once we accept that as our primary value, all of our behavior becomes coherent around that value. Until we apply that as our primary value, we can do anything and just take any kind of action without any real effect. We also talk about the 3 Ds. Our 3 Ds are direction, devotion, and discipline. If you don't have direction, if you don't know where you're going, don't go anywhere. If you don't have devotion, and by devotion I mean a connection to a higher calling, a connection to a transcendent reality, a connection to a life that goes beyond your physical life. And by discipline, I mean we are ready and willing and able to take the action that needs to be taken in order for us to birth this new awareness and birth a new society. So I want to talk a little bit about the impetus for releasing the shadow, embracing the light. I wrote an article some time ago referring to the public mass shootings that we are experiencing as anger-fueled suicide, that people feel a sense of despair, they feel a sense of hopelessness, and instead of picking up the gun and ending their own life, they turn their anger onto their other, whoever the other may be. And by shooting them, they'll think that they're going to get shot, and then that will be the end of their lives. And this is multiple levels of sadness, multiple levels of this isn't really working. Another impetus for me putting the releasing the shadow, embracing the light together was a meeting I attended some years ago here in Portland, and the meeting was with some government, some city officials, and there was a conversation going on about race and racism and the existence of racism, and what they're going to do about racism, etc. And I started getting angry when I heard the meeting, when I was experiencing the meeting. And the reason I was getting angry is that this is a conversation. I remember the same conversation taking place 45 years earlier. It's like, what has happened in the process, in the time where we're stuck at this level? How come we haven't been able to fix this, as opposed to cyclically coming back around again and again and again, talking about the prevalence of the problem? So I said to myself, how do you make the problem go away, as opposed to how do we talk about this some more? And again, this is some of the impetus for talking about or creating Releasing the Shadow, Embracing the Light. And I worked, I was also doing some work with Dignity Village. And Dignity Village is the homeless encampment that's here in Portland. Dignity Village is in my work there, I saw some very interesting things. One of them is that there were a lot of people with a lot of advanced degrees that were homeless and on the streets. Another thing is that I found them to be hope challenged, to be vision challenged, that they couldn't, when I challenged them to say, what does the future look like? They couldn't do it. And when I challenged some of my middle class friends for the same thing, they can't do it either. Okay, and so it's like, how do we get rid of the barriers that separate us from being able to see a future that works for all? And then there's this ongoing frustration that I feel and many people feel with the politics of the left, and a lot of my conservative friends feel an equal frustration with the politics of the right. That we get wrapped up in all of the drama and all of the sound bites, etc. But at the bottom line, neither the left nor the right has an answer to the situations that we're faced with today. And so our challenge is not to poke them, to make them come up with an answer. The challenge is, how do we come up with our own answer? How do we come up with our own way of doing things? So what we're going to do with Shadow to Light is we drill down into the historical, cultural, psychological, and spiritual roots of the four shadows. And I'll tell you what the four shadows are in a few minutes. We drill down into the roots to try to pull up the roots. We don't, if you're trying to get rid of a weed, you don't get rid of it by trying to trim back a few of its leaves. You don't get rid of it by talking about it. You reach down into the soil and you pull up the roots. We're going to work with problems at the root, not at their presenting symptoms. So having a demonstration at a police shooting, for example, having a suicide hotline, for example, those are dealing with the symptoms of the problem. And I'm not saying that not to do that, but I am saying, while you're doing that, why don't we dig down and pull the root of the problem out, so that my grandkids will not be saying 20 or 30 years from now, my grandfather was talking about this stuff way back then and we're still talking about it. Let's go ahead and end the issue and end these shadows right now. I am not looking at a head-centered approach. Again, a lot of the talking we do, there's discussion groups on race and trainings on oppression and trainings on economics, and that, you know, all that's occupying our heads. We know, and I will bet that all of us on this call have a meditation program. All of us have moved energy in our own personal lives. It's now time to move that energy for the entire society. It's the same process, and we can do it. I'm trying not to judge others, other beings and other people and other paths. We have a clear path, and the path has to do with discipline, direction, and devotion. It has to do with inclusivity and our value as a world for all. It's just really simple. And people who don't want that, do something else. People who are doing something else, we can invite them in. But if they say, oh, I don't believe in inclusivity, it's like, okay, bye. You know, do whatever you need to do. This path is creating a particular kind of society, a society open to all and a society that actually works for all. I talk a lot about the dojo, the exercise center, that we work really hard. When you go into your gym or your dojo, the purpose is to work up a sweat. The purpose is to get stronger. And the way we do that is to actually exercise. The antidote to the shadow is ecstasy. And I think I have a really long quote here, but I'm going to read the whole ding dong thing. Okay. This is by Peter Kingsley. Cultures are created and destroyed in ecstasy. And for every moment in between, there is nothing that keeps a world alive aside from the breath of ecstatics. People in great sincerity believe that they know life and the past and the present are, although they know nothing. The news, the huge archives, the carefully written books are all about nothing. They are not even about the shadows of reality or about moving chairs on the deck of a ship that some could go down. They are absolutely nothing. We have the strange idea in the West that civilizations just happen, that they come into existence as a hit or miss affair, and then we bumble along, creating and inventing and making it better. But this is not how things are done at all. Civilizations never just happen. They are brought into existence quite consciously, with unbelievable compassion and determination from another world. I'm going to repeat that part. Civilizations never just happen. They're brought into existence from another world. Then the job of people experienced in ecstasy, experienced in ecstatic love, is to prepare the soil for them, carefully sow and plant them, care for them, and watch them grow. And that's what we're doing right now. We are planting the seeds of a new society. So the four themes that we're looking at with regard to releasing the shadow and embracing the light. The four themes are the four shadows and the four lights. The shadows are the shadow of violence, the shadow of the other, and that includes racism, sexism, homophobia, any way that you separate from the other. And if you think, oh, I've got my racism worked out, I've got my sexism worked out, I don't do that. All I have to do is say the word Donald Trump, and you think of all the different ways you're separating from him, okay? Then if you do that, then Donald Trump is your other. And I don't necessarily mean, our work is not at the level of individuals, but our work is at the level of the whole. So I don't focus on Trump himself. I focus on the people who listen to him. Those people are part of your community. And if you write them off, all we're doing is practicing a new form of elitism, a new form of separation, and a new form of create. We will create the same society with just different players, the same separation with different players. The third shadow is the shadow of lack. And I call lack poverty, greed, and hoarding. So a person who's out in Portland right now, sleeping in a doorway, trying to stay warm, that person is experiencing lack. But a person with multiple millions or even billions of dollars in the bank and constantly trying to get more, that person is experiencing a different kind of lack. Getting rid of the shadow of lack will affect both of them. Then the last shadow is the shadow of despair. And that is manifested in our society by depression, by suicide, by the anger-filled suicides that we see people see daily in the news. The shadow of despair is a multi-billion-dollar industry of trying to manage people's hopelessness and helplessness rather than trying to get them to be fulfilled. Okay, so if those are the four shadows, then what we have to do is look at the four lights, the four ways that we're going to replace these shadows. And the four lights are the light of peace and security. This is the opposite of our multi-billion-dollar violence industry. Think about having a multi-billion-dollar peace industry. The light of inclusive community, and that again is the antidote, that is the opposite of the shadow of the other. To have a community that literally includes all beings, and I don't mean all human beings, I mean all beings. Then the light of true abundance and enoughness, that if I experience my own abundance, if I know for myself how much is enough, then I can have the experience of not experiencing poverty, but also not experiencing excessive hoarding of resources away from those who actually need it. I can feel big enough to give things away. And then the fourth is experiencing the light of deep fulfillment. You know, our country was born on this. When you look at what we put into the Declaration of Independence, that we have inalienable rights. We have rights that no one can ever take away from you, and that includes your life, your liberty, and the pursuit of what they said happiness, but I would replace that with the pursuit of finding fulfillment in your own life. And while I have that right, if I deny that right, those rights to others, that means I don't really believe it. If I'm trying to take freedom from somebody else, I don't believe in freedom. And if I'm trying to take freedom from another being, like a tree or a mountain or a herd of deer, then I'm not practicing deep fulfillment even for myself. And so these are the four themes that we'll be juggling as we start looking at this issue. Imagine what America would actually look like and would be like if it were experiencing the light instead of the shadow. If people recognize that their good came from the practice of the light as opposed to the shadow. Okay, so let's look at the shadow to light technique. This is true for both the shadow and the light. What the practice that we've done through several different rounds of shadow and light. First thing we do is ground and center ourselves, and we have a technique for doing that. Then we clear ourselves and make our energy coherent, and we have a technique for doing that. We set our will and set our intention, and for a lot of us in this society, we take actions without understanding what is my will here, what is my intention here. I don't know if I'm getting bombarded with petitions to try to get the electors and the electoral college to overturn the election. if you understand anything of our history, if you understand anything of their role, of what they are sworn to do, you know that's impossible. It can't be done. And so taking action and encouraging other people to take action that is meaningless, that won't have an effect, is the thing that actually keeps you weak and powerless and frustrated and angry. Let's start focusing on actions that are inside the scope of what we as human beings can do, that will have an effect and will have an intention, and then we'll recognize how powerful we are and how powerful we become. Then we change the story. And for those of you who have read my book, Creating a World That Works for All, I dedicate an entire chapter to the notion of story. We're all living a story. And so what we have to do is learn how to shift the story, learn how to change the story from one of hopelessness and despair to one of let's build this butterfly. And we enter into a meditative state, and we had some tools to do that in the program that we're not going to have available because of the nature of our solstice event here. But I will be encouraging all of us to enter into a meditative state, and then we move energy. And I'll bet that all of us here have had some experience of moving energy, of moving energy in our personal lives, that by being in a meditative state, by holding the right intention, by making the right declarations, the energy will move. And so that has been the technique that we've used over the years regarding the practice of the shadow to light technique. So the process includes, it's based on the battle energy release process, and I know there's a way to get you to put your hands up and down, and so not quite sure how to do that. But I'll continue to work on it here. So the battle energy release process is something that Michelle Small Wright developed. She's the person that wrote the book Behaving as If the God in All Life Mattered. I'm actually seeing people raising their hands now, and I still don't know how you do it. I'm not going to worry about it now. We're so far. I'm now behind time, so I'm going to move along. So the battle energy release process is a process that Michelle Small Wright used to shift the energy at the battlefields around the Civil War battlefields in the South. I modified that and used that as what I called a slavery energy release process some years ago when I was living in Savannah, Georgia. And it was very, very powerful. It really, really worked. And I didn't continue it because I realized that this was an energy that was not mine to release. That I thought that the descendants of the slave owners, not the descendants of the slaves, needed to go in, own the energy, and release it. And I've been encouraging people to do that. And so far, well, hopefully there'll be some takers at some point in time. Some of you know that there was a citywide meditation experiment that was conducted by the Transcendental Meditation folks. This was in Washington, D.C., and they had a bunch of meditators go into D.C. at a particular time and just start meditating. And they could do a correlation with the number of murders that were happening in the city. It was an amazingly high level at that time. And when they started meditating, the level of murders went way, way down. Now, and they said that this was a success, and so they stopped, and it went back up. And I don't know why they stopped. To me, we will do the shadow to light process until it works, and the more of us do it and the faster we do it, then the faster we can all stop doing it. And I'm looking at my time right now, and I'll tell you about the Kessler baby chicks experiment. Arthur Kessler was back in the 1950s and 60s, and he wrote a number of books on the notion of chance. And we all know what chance is. You take a coin, you flip it, and it's a 50-50 chance it's going to land heads or tails. If you flip the coin again, it's still 50-50 whether it lands heads or tails. And so Kessler wanted to experiment with what the ramifications of this chance is. So he created something that's called a random number generator. What a random number generator is just something that generates a random number. He went to look at whether the number was an even number or an odd number. So if this is a random number generator, then 50% of the number should be even, 50% of the number should be odd. He ran it through 10,000 cycles, looked at the numbers, and 4,999 of them were odd and 5,001 were even. That's within the realm of chance. And so that part of the experiment was a success. He hooked the random number generator up to a heat lamp. And if it generated an even number, the lamp would go on. If it generated an odd number, the lamp would go off. So he ran it through 10,000 cycles again. The light was on half the time. The light went off half the time. Okay, so that again confirms this notion of chance. He then put a tray of newly hatched baby chickens in front of the heat lamp and then ran the random number generator for another 10,000 cycles. And the heat lamp stayed on, way outside the realm of chance. And it went from 50-50 to 70-30, that the heat lamp stayed on. That the random number generator was just generating that many positive numbers. That many even numbers. Take the baby chicks away, it goes back to 50-50. So Kessler said, maybe baby chickens are smarter than we give them credit for. Or maybe it's me, maybe the experimenter seeing these cute little baby chickens and wanting them to stay warm is doing this. So he, as a good experimenter, a good scientist, created a double-blind experiment. He had a tray of fertile eggs that were about to hatch, and then another tray of hard-boiled eggs, which actually don't hatch, and ran an experiment again, and had an experimenter who didn't know which tray was which, put them in front of the heat lamp. So nothing in front of the heat lamp, the tray, it's at 50-50. Boiled eggs in front of the heat lamp, it's at 50-50. Fertile eggs in front of the heat lamp, and the heat lamp stays on. So this and a lot more evidence says there's some other force at work in our world. And we can tap into that force the same way these baby chicks tapped into the force. And we can use that force, that energy, to get rid of these shadows and to enhance our light. And that's what I'm suggesting that we do. The Princeton egg experiment is basically the same thing. That it is a global phenomenon that uses this Kessler energy. And so also I put in this process the Alcoholics Anonymous and other addiction anonymous organizations that have this 12-step approach to ridding themselves of their demons. And you'll see parts of that in the Shadow to Light process. So we focus power. We focus it at the source, not the surface. Being involved in, like for example, the police shootings of African Americans, which is higher than the statistical average, focuses on a surface problem. The deeper problem is police shootings, that everybody's getting shot, okay? That our challenge is, how do we provide security for ourselves and for each other in a way that doesn't take security away from anyone else? That's the question. That's the real source. Our work is not at the level of psychology, not at the level of behavior modification. The primary work is at a metaphysical and morphogenetic level. And this is a really important point. The Shadow to Light work is not at the level of an individual. I've had people come in and say, oh yes, I'm really depressed, so I want to take your course and work on my depression. That's not what we're here to do. We're working on societal depression, not individual depression. And I'm not, I've had people who have taken Shadow to Light and said, this really helps me with my depression. So I'm not saying it won't help you, but that's not our goal. So that when somebody comes and says, well, this didn't help me with my individual depression, I said from the beginning, that's not the work, that our work is not at the level of the individual. And it's about going deep. It's about going below the surface. If you can have an experience of this in form, of one of the shadows in form, that's the shallowest part of the shadow. When the shadow is deep, when the shadow of the other, we look at it as deepest manifestation, we're looking deep inside of ourselves, and we're also looking deep inside of our society. So what we would do is we would spend time together understanding the shadow, each shadow, establishing a sacred setting and ceremony, acknowledging the nature and essence of the shadow, opening up to the shadow, using something we called a visual meditation, which actually I've tried to think about how we could do this long distance, and I haven't been able to do that, to come up with that. But we would sit down as a group and meditate together, but instead of closing our eyes, we would keep our eyes open, and we would experience various images, not words, but images around each shadow. And that was to awaken things inside your heart, not inside your head. And we would do a chant that goes, may all beings be well, may all beings be secure, and may all beings be happy, to dispel the energy of whatever the image that we're looking at, or in the case of the visual meditations for the light, to bring in the energy of what that looks like. We do an acknowledgement of where we are and set an intention, and then energetically release the shadow. And then we would close the sacred ceremony. And then we would follow a very similar process for embracing the light. I'm going to pause here. We're about halfway done. And I want to, I see that there's some there's some chatting going on here. And what I want to do is if anybody has a question or a chat, I think everyone can access the chat bar here. So if you've got a question about where we are and what's going on, you can ask that. Or there's also something called Q&A, and you can go to Q&A and you can type in a question. And I'm not seeing any new questions or any new chat. By the way, I see this the question of recording here. When I'm recording me, and I'm recording the slides here, so everything that you see will be available. However, I'm not recording you in any way, so I cannot see you, even if you have whether you have your screen covered or uncovered. That will change. This technology that I'm using here will allow us to all see each other and all interact with each other. But right now, I'm doing baby steps in terms of using this. And I'm very glad I did, considering the rough start we had today because of the snow. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our presentation and start looking at the shadow itself. What do I mean by the shadow? So that when you are in your meditation and you're aiming your energy, what are you aiming at? Our shadows tend to be what we fear, and we tend to fear the shadow in ourselves, and then send that or project that into others. The shadow is fear itself. And so when we talk about releasing the shadow, we're talking about releasing our fears. The shadow is produced when something blocks the light. And so if you have something if you have light here and something's blocking the light, it doesn't matter whether or not you turn the light up stronger. If something's blocking it, it's not going to get through. So by removing the blockage, we automatically open ourselves to the light. So how does shadows get transmitted? They're transmitted by our culture. They're transmitted by our DNA. Our DNA gives us more than our color of our skin or color of our eyes or whatever. Our DNA actually gives us our cultural memory also. And so the memory of slavery is inside my DNA. It's also inside your DNA, regardless of what race you are. And so when we start digging out these shadows, we need to be digging it out even at the level of DNA. It's transmitted to us by our history through our education and training. And that's done first and foremost by your parents. They're the ones that give you your first cultural memes. And that stuff sticks around for a very long time. Those of you who have been in my workshop on looking at deep identity and deep conflict know that it's there before you can even think about it. It's there from your own personal experiences. And when you have an experience that confirms the existence of a shadow, then you are more likely to have an experience that will confirm and strengthen the shadow inside of you. And then, like tuning forks in an orchestra hall, when your shadow gets vibrating, you start vibrating other people's shadows. Similarly, when other people are vibrating from a shadow perspective, they can set your shadows off. And so there are these very subtle transmissions of energy. And similarly, there can be very subtle changes in energy that can get rid of it. A shadow gets transmitted by secondary information. I would be willing to bet that none of us on this call have actually seen or experienced a police shooting directly. But I'll be willing to bet that each one of us has experienced a lot of them through videotape, that you have this experience of the shadow that's given to us by these media memes that get pushed at us. So, is fear necessary? Yes. You see a barking, growling dog that's heading toward you. Are you afraid? You should be, and you should take appropriate action if that's what you see in the world. I remember I was in Sri Lanka, and it wasn't a barking, growling dog, but it was a bull elephant in the middle of the road with its tusks aimed at our car, with its ears flared out, trumpeting. That's something that you need to find out where your reverse gear is in your car and back up. So yes, some fear is necessary. But shadow fears hold us back. Shadow fears hold us back from our ability to experience life. We begin to process everything in terms of this shadow, and it's something that just holds us back. So minimizing our shadows means we are minimizing our fear. So each shadow has a corresponding light. When we minimize the shadow, the more we minimize the shadow, the more we can maximize our light. So let's look at the effects of shadows in our personal and societal lives. On the personal level, our shadow keeps us small and unenlightened. It doesn't allow us to grow. It keeps us from perceiving reality. Reality may be somewhere very different from where our shadow wants us to see. It magnifies our fears. It makes our fears even more powerful and more palpable. It keeps us from our greatness. And this is something I think that most of us know, the quote from Nelson Mandela. Well, actually, it was attributed to Nelson Mandela, claimed by Marianne Williamson, that the thing that keeps us small is not our problems, but our fear of our greatness. On a personal level, it keeps us self-destructive. It keeps us from being able to be self-realizing. It keeps us very, very angry. If you see angry people, for whatever the reason for the anger is, you can see the shadow in operation. It keeps us unempowered. It keeps us away from our power. It keeps us depressed and numb. And so, what is the effect on us if that's what happens on a personal level? What is it that keeps us going on a societal level in terms of keeping the shadow going? We have a society, we create a society that's based on our insecurities and our fears. We have a society that perpetuates injustice, okay, that we can't seem to get rid of the stuff that we say we want to get rid of. from 1776, when our founders said that we were creating a society that's based on life, on liberty, and the pursuit of fulfillment. We've been walking away from that. And by doing that, we've been creating massive injustice. We create a society that's fundamentally unsustainable. There are all these global sustainability pacts and environmental pacts, the Kyoto Accords and the Rio Accords and the Paris Accords, but that's just trimming the leaves on the weed. What we have is a fundamentally unsustainable society. Caterpillars are fundamentally unsustainable. That's why they go away and they're replaced by butterflies. And so that's what our goal is, and that's what our task is. How do we transform ourselves, me first? How do we transform our communities? How do we transform our society? And then how do we transform the global human society into something that is fundamentally sustainable? We create a society that's immoral, and that's a word that I want to bring back into focus. Our churches generally have walked away from calling things as they are. We're locked in the morality of 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, where a largely agrarian society, a society that was very small. There was kind of two classes of people, etc. We have a society that is very different from that now. And the things that are immoral in our society, how we use our wealth improperly, how we castigate others, how we if I keep going in that direction, I'll be listing all the evils that are on page 30 on creating a world that works for all, and we'll be here all night. Not my intention. And so we need to start looking at how our society is actually at odds with our own morality. We create a society that's mindless. I don't watch television. And so the only time I see a screen is when I'm in a restaurant where they have the 25 screens and you can't help but see what's on these screens. And even without the sound, you can see that the images that are going into people's minds are mindless images, that they mean absolutely nothing. And we do that, we keep broadcasting that over 500 channels to keep a society that's mindless and easily manipulable. And this is true from the right, and it's also true from the left. And so what we have to be, as the antidote to that, the light to that, is creating a mindful society. And the first step in that is that I must be mindful as opposed to mindless. And eventually we create a suicidal society. Suicide is at an epidemic level in this society. And in the last election, I don't think either one of the presidential candidates talked about it once. It is the thing that is driving us to mass suicide. It's the thing that is driving all of the public shooters. And we don't talk about it. And at some point in time, we're going to. And at some point in time, we're going to change the energy of it. So now that we've seen what the shadow is, what is it that keeps it in place? Well, the first thing is denial that it even exists, fear of what lurks behind it, attachment to a story that requires the shadow. If I have a story that says the reason that I'm where I am in my life is because you did this to me, or you did this to my people, or you stole something from me, etc. I have to keep that shadow in place if I keep my story in place. Once I let go of the story, I can let go of the shadow. But letting go of the story can be very difficult. People commit suicide before they let go of their story. That's how attached we can be to the existence of story. And so our challenge is how do we change that so that we see that our story can be flexible and we can change that. We can become new people whenever we choose to. Eliminating the story eliminating the shadow may invalidate one's story. The inability to admit that you were wrong means the inability to apologize for something and seek forgiveness. So your story may be, we were right the whole time, and therefore I don't ever have to apologize, I don't ever have to seek forgiveness, and this energy can go on for generations. This is a big one. We can accept our shadow as our identity, that I can believe that I am the shadow. When I used to say, I am poor, what I was doing was saying, this shadow is my identity. Okay. What I've done is say, I am abundant. I am truly abundant. Now, the levels of my abundance may be very different from somebody else's levels of abundance, but once I experience that, I minimize that shadow for myself, and I try to help other people not to identify their temporary condition as their identity. It involves an inability to face who you've been in your life, an inability to face who you can become. Once I say that I'm an abundant person, I can become anything. I can do anything. And if that's the case, I have to be willing to face who I will be when I am abundant, when I am inclusive, when I am forgiving. We may be unable to face the loss of community, even if the community is negative. This was a big issue for me. I tell everybody, I smoked a lot of marijuana when I was in college. I don't anymore, even though it's legal here in Portland. I smoked enough for several lifetimes. Bill Clinton said that he never inhaled. Well, I never exhaled. I kept going. And when I made a decision to change my life and to stop smoking, I had to face the fact that these smoking buddies of mine had been my family. I mean, it was something we did every single day. It was something around which our lives revolved. And it was hard, even though I knew I was doing this to become a better person, it was hard to give up that negative. Another thing that keeps the shadow in place is the fear of the unknown. I asked the question, what would America become if we are a society of the light? Well, we don't know that. We don't have an experience of that. Let's find out, but let's not be afraid of the unknown. Let's not let the fear of the unknown keep us locked into place. And again, fear of our greatness, fear of being of having a situation where we can become as great as we claim to be, as great as some of us claim to be. So, how is the shadow removed and how is the light enhanced? What is the process by which we do this? We use multiple methodologies to address and remove the shadow and enhance the light. We focus away from our personal selves. Again, this isn't something where I'm trying to get something for myself. We're trying to focus on all of us, on the whole. We're trying to focus on the one of which I am a part. So let's look at our Shadow to Light Winter Solstice event. And let me say from the beginning, I had wanted this to happen a different kind of way. I'd set up a Shadow to Light, two Shadow to Light training programs for November and another one in December, so that a group of people would have an abbreviated training program, so that we would spend that what I just went through in an hour, we would spend 4 weeks going through it, so that we would really be on the same level. You'd have the visual meditations. You'd be able to see all of the process that we're talking about, and practice with each other, so that when we hit the winter solstice event, we'd hit it running. Those events didn't happen. People did not subscribe to the November and December training programs. And I realized that this is really hard. There's going to come a time when, thousands, tens of thousands, perhaps millions of people will be doing the Shadow to Light work. But for those of us who are doing this as pioneers, those of us on this call right now, this is really difficult for us, because we're the ones that have to blaze the trail for others to follow. And when others follow, it'll seem really easy to them. Like, oh, this is great. Why weren't we doing this years ago? And so these things will grow over time. This is our first winter solstice event. Who knows how many people will be participating? Because you're going to go, each one of you, and I'm trying to see how many of us there are on the call right now. Each one of you will go out and you will tell others about this. You'll tell others how to get the recording, and they'll listen to all of this. And they'll tell other people, etc. So we may have several hundred people around the country doing this work. And that'll be great. And then the next year, it may be several thousand. And once you start feeling the shadow shifting, it will take place faster and faster. In some ways, it'll be very disconcerting, because that will mean more and more people are going to be aware of the caterpillar, are going to be aware of the how this society has been acting like a caterpillar, and will start moving to how the society acts as a butterfly, and that's going to make things happen faster. So the more we're doing this, the faster it will happen. And it will happen on an energy level that no one, it's not going to be masses of people in the streets. It's going to be all of a sudden things just look and act very, very, very differently. Okay, so let's go through this event and see what it looks like. I'm proposing that we act on the 3 days of the winter solstice, the 20th, the 21st, the 22nd. The first day is what I call release day, releasing the shadow day. This is the day to energetically release the 4 shadows, release it from yourself, release it from your communities, release it for our entire society. The second day, the day of the solstice, I'm calling balance day. The day that we would then use our energy to envision what the world looks like without the 4 shadows, and get really specific with this, because one of the challenges is we don't see things very clearly, okay? We don't see how our entire banking structure, for example, exists because we have a violence factory. If we weren't selling jets around the world, if we weren't selling bombs and guns around the world, what would our economy look like? Okay, so it's time to envision what our world looks like without those 4 shadows. And then this third day is what I call the embrace day, the embracing the light. That's the day that we energetically embrace the four lights. We do this for ourselves. We do this for our communities. And we do this for our entire society. So on day one, the day of the longest shadows, you can engage in this in one of two different ways. Either as yourself as an individual doing the work, or get a small group together. And I mean, a small group can be what, 3 or 4 people, and do that work, the shadow work together. I guarantee you, actually, I sort of wrote my right hand. Okay, I guarantee you that if you do it as a group, you'll feel the energy shift in a profound way. So in the short program, let's say that you're doing this by yourself. I want you to meditate on releasing the 4 shadows, focusing on releasing yourself, your communities, our entire society, and the world. If you're doing it in the longer, what I call the power program, it's going to be a couple of hours, and you talk about it, and then you do the same energy work, but instead of doing it as individuals, you do it in the collective. On the day of balance, again, the short program is to meditate on what the world would look like without the 4 shadows. See the world free from violence. See the world free from poverty. See the world free from otherness. See the world free from despair. And again, you're doing that for yourself, but you're also doing it for your communities, our entire society, and the world. The power program is when you would have the same people that met the first day meet the second day for a couple of hours and do a collective visioning process. The third day, on the day of the return of the light, the short program would be to meditate on embracing the 4 lights. Meditate on embracing the light of peace, the light of enoughness and abundance, the light of community, and the light of deep fulfillment. And the power program would be to do all of that, but with a small group of people. Or if you can muster a large group of people, do it with a large group of people. The process itself, you ground yourself, and you find a process that will ground you. In our group, we did some exercises that would just literally physical exercises, roll your shoulders, bend your neck, etc., that just get your body moving in a different way and ground you in your present reality, not the 4-hour drive to get to your webinar or anything like that. Then you create an altar or sacred ceremonial space. Again, if you're doing this as an individual, this may mean lighting a candle or placing a sacred object on the table. What we did in the program was have people bring a sacred object, and everybody put their object on the table. We lit a candle, and we held that space. This was our workshop space for the duration of our time. Then we did our acknowledgments and intentions and clearings. And I think I'm going to be able to switch windows and show you what that looks like. But let me get a little further down the road. So we did our acknowledgments, intentions, and clearing. We opened the pathway into the energy. And again, for those of you who know how to who've done individual energy work, you know how to do that. Okay, and we have a process to do that. Then we move the energy through a set of energy declarations, of statements. And then we concluded and closed the energy. I am making this as a suggestion. This is the first of our winter solstice events around Shadow to Light. And I am suggesting that you do these actions at your sunrise or at your sunset. If you want it to be really powerful, do it twice that day. Do it at sunrise and do it at sunset. And if you're doing this with groups, that may be very impractical for you to do that. So if you're doing shadow to light in a group, I would suggest that the group time be 7 p.m. in your local time, okay? So the folks on the East Coast would be 7 p.m. Eastern. The folks out here would be 7 p.m. Pacific. As I told you, I will be, excuse me, I will be in Thailand, and I will be doing this at Pacific times. So I'll be part of the Pacific groupings at sunrise, whatever sunrise is, and I may be getting up in the middle of the night in order to do this at the Pacific sunrise and the Pacific sunset. I'm going to try to do both. We'll see how that works. I'm not asking for a whole lot of time, okay? It's that we're talking about basically 1 or 2 hours if you are doing this as individuals, 2 to 3 hours if you're doing this in a group. I know this is the busiest time of the year, and I'm doing this on purpose to slow down from the busyness, to take stock of that busyness, to actually do something that is going to bring all those statements that we talk about this time of year about peace on earth, goodwill to men. We can't kind of forget about the women on those postcards. We talk about joy to the world. We talk about peace, etc. And then on the 26th of December, we take all that stuff and trash it and go back to what we're doing. So let's take some time to focus our energy and intention that will actually bring this energy into the world. Okay, that was it for the slideshow. So I'm going to try to go backwards. And I don't know how to do that from the slideshow. Oh, and that's me really big now. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint, and I want to punch up the screen share. And I'm going to ask if there are any questions or comments or thoughts. There should be a few by now, and I am looking to see. I'm not seeing anybody typing questions in. If you don't do something quickly, I'll keep talking. You know that anyone who knows me knows that is not an idle threat. Okay, so Robert is asking a question. How do we get a copy of this to follow the plan? All of this is going to be this video. If we did things correctly, is going to be available, and I'm going to make it available on YouTube. And I will give all of you the link. I may not be able to do that until tomorrow. And I'll give all of you the link. There's also a little booklet, and let me see if I can find the booklet to share that. And I will give you the copy of the booklet. Hang on. And another question just came up. Hang on. at some point in time, I'm really looking forward to having a tech person do all this. So I can just be interacting with you, but I am my own tech person right here. So I'm going to see if I can switch the share. And this is the book, the little booklet. And I'm going to ask Robert to answer this question. Can you see the booklet right now? It says Releasing the Shadow, Embracing the Light, Advanced Declarations. Is that on your screen right now? And okay, so this is I will get this to you, and this is the process that we use. And I say the energy of the declarations is strengthened by repeating them, reading them out loud, and repeating them with others. And you're going to feel where your stuckness is as you start saying some of these things. For example, and this is when we're setting our beginning energy. I act for myself personally, and I act as a representative of all humanity. That means that you stand in your power. Your power is that you are a representative, a conscious, mindful representative of all of humanity. And you open the door in that name, okay? You honor the divine. And by divine, I am not talking about God or Jehovah or Jesus or whatever. I'm talking about the transcendent reality that is above all of us, okay? That's beyond all of us, but is actually a part of all of this. I am a part of the divine. And it goes through several different other levels of acknowledgments. Recognizing that you're transforming the status quo, that you are changing shadows to light, that you clear your own identity of shadows. When you say these things, they become true. And then when you go into the main body of the declarations, you're saying, as for yourself and as a representative of all of humanity, I release, I end, and I transmute the shadows. And then I'm calling on all beings to release, end, and transmute the shadows. That the shadows transmute for their highest possible good. So we don't want anybody having a bad day because the shadows got transmuted. So you're asking that you be free from the shadow of, for example, violence, or lack, or the other, or despair. We're asking for you for you to aim that energy at others, at other people in your circle, your church congregation, your community, your neighborhood, your whole society, and then to focus that energy. May all beings be free from the shadows. Then, the next day, that third day, you would focus on the lights, that you embrace, you shine, you strengthen, and intensify these lights, that you see all beings doing this, that the light shines at its highest possible energy, and that all stories, all systems, and structures transmute for the good of all beings, all living beings. That may mean that corporations have a really, really bad day, or a really bad rest of their lives, okay, rest of their non-lives. But what we see is that when we are asking for this energy to be there for the good of all living beings, and then you do the similar kind of connection of embracing the light for all of four lights, asking that others in your circle embrace the light, and then ask that all beings embrace those lights. Then we end with what I call the inclusivity prayer. And I'm not going to go through it now, but you'll have this in the packet. This you'll see this. This has a strange kind of format to it. As I'm sending it to you, if you can do two-sided copies, it makes a very nice little booklet. And I know that some of us have actually carried our booklets around and find it um, um, find it good to remind yourselves of these things frequently, especially when you come face to face with your shadow. I want to acknowledge that there is also some things happening in the on the chat in the chat box, and someone had to sign off because some of you are East Coasters, and I really appreciate that you hung in there that long. And Eileen was saying that that they may have to start on a different time on the 21st. Whatever is going to work for you, especially if you're going to be doing a group, that would be excellent. And I see Dino's asking the question, can we do virtual groups? Yes. I would actually encourage you. I would actually encourage me to sneeze right now. Excuse me. Excuse me. I would actually encourage you to form a virtual group. You can if you have unlimited minutes on your phones, just create a group on your phone. Some of you can do FaceTime, you can do WhatsApp, you can do Skype, you can do lots of different ways that you can do something that is virtual. It's kind of hard to do the chanting because software, fiddles around with time, and you hear everybody saying things at different times. But as long as you know the intention is there, I think that it's good to share that energy. The idea of holding where to hold groups. I would say that there are organizations already aligned with the notion of inclusivity. I would find those organizations and see if you can use space. I know that a number of you on this call are associated with the Unitarian Universalist, Centers for Spiritual Living branch of the Christian tradition. I would say that all of them are places where you are experiencing, or where you would have maybe some place, a place that would give you a space, and maybe a place where there would be people that would be interested in doing that work. I see that Greg, who I believe Greg has attended each one of the Releasing the Shadow, Embracing the Light training programs, that Greg is organizing a group here in the Portland area, northeast, southeast Portland. I already, and he's already got one taker. Leanna just volunteered to be part of the Montevilla group. And so, so this will come together in interesting ways. And in a way, it's frustrating that I'll be out of the country. On another level, I think it's good that I'll be out of the country. I will be hopefully an email away. But I think it's good that we take this energy outside of me and out and into this greater field. Each one of us is a power, um, and each one of us has the opportunity to exercise this power in the world. And I see there's a comment. It was really interesting getting these comments and reading the comments from people that I know. From Linda King, who's saying that we hung out at the Commons Cafe activities in both Denver and Omaha. And for those who are not familiar with that, these were what I call large format events that brought hundreds of people together around the common way philosophy, and got to have people experience each other and experience the energy of what it means when we start crossing our lines, not in anger or frustration, but with joy. Um, um, Linda goes on to say, can you speak to anything we can do to help the Aleppo events, and also the event when the veterans asked for forgiveness for all the transgression against the native people at DAPL Protect the Water event? I think that we can see in the world some truly, on the one hand, horrific, and then on the other hand, uplifting events. I think that it's when we are targeting energy, it's really hard not to get caught up in the immediacy of an event. On the one hand. On the other hand, I think it would be very cruel for us to turn our backs on things that are happening in the world and say, oh, I'm just talking at this metaphysical level, and the fact that people are being slaughtered in the city, the fact that these wars are going on, the fact that people are making a stand, like, for example, on the pipeline issue. I don't want to minimize that. And what I would suggest that you do, that when you're doing the shadow to light work, when you look at, may I be free from the shadow of lack, violence, the other, and then when you go to may you be free, you can target the energy into Aleppo, for example. Okay, you can target the energy. May you be free from the shadow of violence. May you be free from the shadow of despair. May you be free from the shadow of the other, because that is what's going on for all of them. Okay, that they're wrapped in this shadow. People are being killed and people are dying right now because of the existence of the shadow. I want the shadow to go away so that we don't have to ask this question, and my grandkids don't have to ask this question going into their future, going into their time together. Speaking of time, you probably heard my 9 o'clock alarm. I said that we were going to go to 9:30. However, I'm feeling that this is pretty complete. And so what I would suggest is that we go another 5 minutes. I'll tell you kind of what the next steps are here, and then we can end. If you do have any other questions, go ahead and ask them now, and we'll try to get all that done in the next 5 minutes. as I said, what I will do is I will put this information up on YouTube, so you can access it. But more importantly, you can point other people to it, saying, "I would suggest you take an hour and a half and look at this video and participate with me." The other thing is, I will get for you the PDF file that has these the declarations on it. I will. It's going to take a little doing to do that, but I will try to do that before I leave town. It makes it a whole lot harder to do it when you're in another country and you're not familiar with the with where the Wi-Fi is, etc. And if if we need to, we may set up another opportunity for us to chat together. It probably won't be video. I probably cannot use this platform in another country, but maybe we can do something with Google or maybe something with Skype, etc. If you need it. I'm hoping that through. Oh, I'm sorry. And the other thing is, I'll actually put the slideshow up in some way. You may not want to refer to the entire video, but you may want to go through and refresh your recollection of the slides themselves. Yeah, chat about this in your social groups. Talk about this in your churches. See who's interested in looking for and looking at a different way of us connecting with each other, and a different way for us to exist with each other. I will do all that I can to help move this energy forward. As you know, the Shadow to Light program, people paid for it to be in that program. And if I offer it in February or March, the weeks-long program, I will be asking for a fee for that. But this is there's no fee attached to doing the Winter Solstice event, and there's no fee attached for this information. Any of you are free at any time to make a contribution to Common Way, and to look at the creation of helping us to create this at a larger level. But I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing this in order to spread the energy and spread the light. I will also suggest one more thing, and that is to if you've got a little reading time this week, this holiday season, to read my book, The Chronicles of the Upheavals. I'm making an assumption that people have read Creating a World That Works for All. If you haven't read that book, go out and get the book. Go to Amazon right now and buy the book. If you've read that book, go to Amazon right now and buy a book called The Chronicles of the Upheavals. When I go to Thailand tomorrow, I'm going there to find my tooth. I'm joking about it, but as I said, it's been a very painful process for me. But I'm going to be spending my time writing the sequel to The Chronicles of the Upheavals. So if you want to get an idea of what I'll be doing, you can go on Amazon and type in that book and get it. Thank you so much for all that you've done. Thank you for hanging in there with me as I battled the snow to get here. Thank you for participating in this. That through this we will raise the energy of our planet and raise our own energy while we're doing it. And I am really looking forward to it. Unless there is some other business that we need, I'm going to get us to end our process right now. And if I know where the off button is, I guess I did all this research in how to do this program. I just didn't. I didn't do the research on how to turn it off. So, there it is. There's a button here. So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Blessings to all of us. May all beings be well. May all beings be secure. May all beings be happy. Namaste, and look forward to us moving some energy on the solstice. Good night.